Welcome to the Safety Break, the Whitewater Rescue Podcast. We're here to share stories of real river accidents and rescues and find expert advice on how to solve the problems you might encounter in the Whitewater River environment. I'm your host, Jack Diddy, an emergency medicine physician, whitewater paddler, and wilderness medicine educator. Together, I hope we can celebrate successful rescues and learn from our mistakes in a supportive environment. If you have a story to share of a non-fatal accident or rescue, send me an email at thesafetybreak@gmail.com or contact me on our Facebook page, The Safety Break. If you like what you hear, hit the subscribe button and follow us on social media. I hope you learned something valuable in the show. Tommy Hillicky was a dominant force in the early days of the Green Race. He started winning this thing in 1999, and by 2005 had 6 titles and the course record under his belt. I met him at the Russell Fork in those years, as he kept showing up and winning that race too. Our safety setup at the Russell Fork was pretty sparse back then. We'd ask around for volunteers and luckily had a handful of folks that would show up. We'd talk beforehand about a few of the priority spots to have a rope handy. But a lot of the actual plan would go up in a cloud of smoke on race day. There was never anyone stationed at Towers or Fist back when the race used to include those rapids, and even though they had proven to have fatal consequences for mistakes, we pretty much just assumed that we were on our own. I think the early days of the Green Race were about the same. In fact, there was a very strong mentality in the race community at the time that we each assumed 100% of the risk, with no expectation of help from anyone. The lack of organization was part of the allure of it all. You really felt like you were participating in some wild and dangerous underground thing. And I know I shouldn't glorify it on this safety podcast, but in all honesty, the thrill of paddling alone at max speed through those magnificent gorges was pretty hard to beat. But as these events started to attract more and more people, the safety scene needed to progress as well. Now the Green Race is a huge event with an international draw, and things are quite different. As it turns out, the rescue scene there looks just as fun and interesting as the race itself. This safety setup seems like a serious logistical challenge, though, with danger spots strung out along the half-mile course and limited communication options in the river gorge. It's hard to even walk around in there. The riverbanks are steep and choked with jungle-like vegetation. Everything in the immediate river corridor is blocked by huge boulders and slick granite. So I wanted to find out how all of this works. Luckily, the man who organizes this whole process was willing to come on here and explain it. And while Tommy still races now, he has transitioned into the lead role of the river safety crew. He also organizes safety for the North Fork Championships in Idaho. He agreed to talk with me on here and explain what goes on behind the scenes at the race. Let's jump right into that interview with Tommy from early October. I mainly just wanted to kind of get a sense of what goes on behind the scenes at the Green Race in terms of the safety organization, because it seems like it's pretty legit effort that you all are doing.
Yeah, no, it's kind of legit. I'd say it's like one of the most legit ones.
If you don't mind, maybe take me back a little bit further, though. So back, I don't know exactly the years, but late 90s, maybe early 2000s. And what was the safety like then? Do you remember what was going on with this?
Yeah. No, there was a couple of years where people would set safety at Gorilla early on. I can't remember. Had to be like 01 or 02 maybe, but I was one of the first I think I was the first racer. And when I went through, there was nobody there, like nobody setting safety. There was a lot of spectators, but nobody down in the pit. And I was kind of like, shit, somebody should be up there. So I ran back up there and got down at the bottom of Gorilla and set safety. And that's kind of how it all started, I guess.
At what point did you realize like that something more kind of substantial or formal needed to be done?
So there was one year when it was pretty spectacular rescue down at Gorilla where Luke Strickland and John Abercrombie were live bait and down in the bottom of Gorilla. And Luke did this like pretty acrobatic dive over a kayak and grabbed somebody, and it like had its viral moment on the internet. And those guys got invited to be on USA Today about that rescue. And I mean, I think they like flew him to New York and had him like showed the clip and talked to him on USA Today. And from the story that I got, there was a guy watching that episode and was like, that is the craziest event ever. And this guy was an insurance executive. And he was like, I wonder how they get insurance. And this guy was like the umbrella policy, the ACA, like fit under that big company at the time. And I think he was just kind of like, holy shit, we insured them. And so he called those guys and was like, hey, I'd like to see an accident report. He called Grace and Chelsea and was like, hey, I think I'd like to see an accident report about that. And we didn't have any kind of accident report. I'm like, you saw it on the news, man. That's what happened. But so after that, we started being more legit, just like looking at what was required for insurance purposes. That was kind of the big driver of it. Really getting like more formal. I mean, I think there were some years where it was pretty loose down in the pit, and people were having a good time spectating and setting safety at the same time. If you know what I'm saying. but after that, we kind of had to at least make it more discreet and just, I don't know, putting people in that really knew what they were doing, or not even knew they were doing, because we all kind of knew what we were doing, but people that have like certifications now, and kind of we play by the rules a little bit more, I guess. And
so I'm assuming the insurance requires an actual written safety plan. I know it did back in the Russell Fork when I was doing that. And now, of course, now the insurance is all changed, but
yeah, it's like a risk management plan.
Yeah,
we have that, and just kind of a basic plan on how we're going to perform evacuations and stuff like that. The good thing about it for us is working with Blue Ridge Fire and Rescue, because really they take a lot of the extrication from the gorge and they handle like 90% of that. Like, we provide manpower, but for me being in charge of the river safety, it's like I need to get the people out of the river and hand them off to those guys. They're awesome. Justin Blythe runs it. I don't know if you know him at all, but he's a kayaker. He's really cool. And yeah, they're super awesome.
And are you communicating with them during the race? Like, you have radio communication with them?
Yep. We got radio communication with them, and and usually have like those guys break up into teams. So we'll have a team at Go Left and a team at the Gorilla, and you guys are spread out in the crowd.
They're staying out of the water.
Yeah, they stay out of the water. Yep. I think they treat a lot more hikers than they do kayakers.
Yeah, I've seen a few injuries down there. Saw a kid fall off a rock one time, land on his head from 10 feet.
Oh, no.
He was okay ultimately, but man, it's disturbing.
It's a savage environment. It's dangerous down there.
Yeah. So you handle the river rescue part of it. So if there's something happening in the water, that's you and your team kind of are involved in that part.
Yep, and exactly.
What does your team consist of? Like, how many people do you have typically?
Usually about 30 people total. I'd say 25 to 30, just depending on the year. Like you said, I get a core group of volunteers for like all the major players, and then I'll just plug people in where, like, volunteers that are like, hey, I showed up today, I'd like to set some safety. I'm like, all right, sweet, we can plug you in here, where it's light. But I have a spreadsheet, each rapid, each position in that rapid.
And so people have designated roles going, like, that they know their role before race day, where they're going to be stationed, what they're going to be doing.
Yep, 100%. And I mean, we were lucky with the green and the predictability of the water and everything. And so many people that run it, it's like you can look at every rapid and be like, okay, so one time this happened, so you need to be able to figure out how to get there. And another time I got pinned right there, or somebody swam here. And I know you can wade out there and there's a rock. You can't see it, but there's a rock there you can use to grab somebody. So there's a lot of intricacies in that course particularly.
And what rapids are you prioritizing? Like, where do you have people stationed?
Obviously the Gorilla, like the whole Gorilla slide section, we stack pretty heavily. And then Go Left is always like, might be the one that scares me the most of a pin situation. We've had a couple of them, but the team's been good, and I don't ever want to get comfortable out there. I don't want the guys to be comfortable. Like, it's very real. So I think and I feel like everybody's like pretty serious with it now, especially at Go Left. Zwicks, people swim out of, and Chief. Like, so we put some people there. just to mostly get them out of the rock water above Gorilla and watch out for. There's a little cave at the bottom of Chief on the left. It's kind of gnarly. So,
are there any gaps anywhere that you worry about? Like any spots where there's not really feasible to station somebody or?
Not too many really. I usually cover those places. I would say the one spot that I'm always light, I feel like, is the bottom of Power Slide above Rapid Transit. It's a hard place to get to. It's not a super exciting place to stand, and doesn't hardly ever see any action. But when it does, it's usually like you're towing a boat across the river or paddling a swim across the river. Kind of like cleanup station, but but stuff goes down there. People swim.
You got about a month left. Is there anything that you all are doing like in the next few weeks to get up to speed with it?
I mean, yeah, I put out some messages to people in the past. We have a secret group that is like the Green River Safety Group. So everybody that's been a volunteer in the past is in on that. And I mean, hopefully they check their messages and whatnot. But that's usually where I kind of disseminate most of the information, do a lot of emailing and get the teams set up like usually the week before. And then when I get there, usually the week before, I'll meet with people if they haven't been in one spot. I'm like, hike in, I'll meet you and we can talk about the spots. And then I usually set up anchors like the day before the race. Just being down there and knowing what I can use for anchors, which routes are good. Sometimes I've used cams and like know which size cams to put in to make like rock anchors and stuff. But
so you're actually building anchors in there for live bait rescues, essentially.
Yeah.
And on race day, like how does your day go? What time do you get up in the morning that day?
Usually like 5:45 or so. We get up pretty early. We'll have a safety meeting at the put in with all the crew that's going down the river that day. And then hopefully everything's just planned out ahead of time. That's like the main thing. Most people know. So we'll have a hike in crew that leaves pretty early. They usually get down there around 10. And then the paddling crew, gets there 11 before, 11:30 at the latest. Everybody's pretty set up and ready to go. And then I try to forget all that stuff and do my race.
So you still race now?
Yeah. Still racing. Yeah. And then, after my race run, I just get on the radio and I just kind of work. I just basically walk the river. I check in on every station. I'll help if there's some kind of scenario going on, but for the most part, I just try to keep an eye on everything and go to places if something goes down.
Does each team at the anchor points have a radio?
At Gorilla, usually Grace and Hale and I actually have radios, and we communicate with the Blue Ridge guys. So they have a radio at the finish line and the start line. So those are kind of our communication points. So one of us is always at one of those places. I'd say that's kind of how the chain of communication works. And then, yeah.
And if there was something going on at Go Left, like, would you have somebody there would be able to notify the starter or the other kind of lead?
But even still, it takes 3 minutes to get to Go Left. So you've already got 3 other racers on course if something goes down, before you could tell them to stop. Yeah. So that gets tricky. Last year we had somebody pinned, and I think they got him they broached across the entrance slot, and I think we had him out, but they only missed 4 racers. So 4 minutes, boat was clear, it was back on. So that's kind of
it was a cool video to watch it.
Yeah.
What do you need any additional support? Are you looking for people to help, or do you feel like you've got it covered and you want to kind of keep it?
We're definitely always looking for people for sure. Yeah.
What do you look for? What kind of certifications do people need before they come in and do this?
Usually I'll have somebody that's a level 4 ACA or SRT equivalent at each of the major spots, and then I'll just put qualified assistants, people that are kayakers that know what's going on and as kind of backups, but I like to have somebody that has the certs, is been through some practice and knows what's going on. And then if I compare those with people that like really know the river, like, people that have like run the green and are kind of into it, but at the same time aren't quite ready to race. I feel like that's gone on a few times where people that paddler will set safety for a year, and then like the next year they're like, all right, I'm racing this year. So that happens pretty frequently. A little
cool.
bit of turnover like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. A good way to get into it too. I mean, if you're thinking about racing in the future, that's a great way to kind of test it.
Yeah. No, totally.
See what can go wrong and then figure out if you truly want to bite that off or not. Do you want to put a plug in for how people can contact you?
Yeah, it's just on the greenrace.us website. There's a volunteer tab that they can click on. Okay. Yeah, and just put their information in, certification, experience. I like to know that stuff, kind of helps me fill in the matrix. Yeah, I don't know. Can we say something about like Andy Grizzle and Zach Dean and Nick Fiedler, like a bunch of those guys? Yeah, the crews that show up like consistently at Gorilla and Go Left, like those guys make my part of it so much easier.
There's pretty much the same people every year that are coming back, or at least
yep. At Grizzle Island, especially. Yeah, those guys are. I mean, Andy had some amazing rescues. I mean, have you seen like some of that?
I've seen some of the videos. I've watched the gorilla rescue that you talked about that was on the USA Today or the whatever national.
Yeah. Good Morning America.
Good Morning.
Yeah.
And then I've watched some of Andy's videos or the videos of that area where Andy's at. But yeah, I mean, and I saw the video from the Go Left last year.
Go Left from last year. Yeah, that was crazy. Wesley Bradley, do you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been there.
He did Go Left for quite a few years, and he really dialed in like the good system of like refiguring out the anchors and everything, and he had a really good system up there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then who else was I thinking that? Curtis and Blaine. Those are Andy's buddies, and they've been going out there for like 10 years.
Nice. So you got good solid experience.
Yep, exactly. Micah and Morgan Cox, they're always at Gorilla. Like they've been doing safety for a super long time. So I feel like they definitely help really pull it together when it comes to like the parts, because that's like there's definitely some people that only they contact me and they're like, what, I can't be a Gorilla this year, and I'm like, man, this is your first year, I don't know what your deal is. I was like, those guys have been doing this, they know when to rescue people, when to let people go. Like that's a hard thing with the safety is people going off a Gorilla, having like going off upside down versus flipping over and like smacking the rock. That's a hard thing to know how to judge if you're like, oh, should I rescue that guy? And we've definitely caught some flack for some like overzealous rescues.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. I mean, I think, you always want to make sure that if someone is really struggling that you're getting them out, but you don't want to interfere, I guess, with their race time either.
With their race time, yeah.
Well, I guess what I would say though is, if you're jangling enough that you're upside down and it's a question, you're not going to win the fucking green race at that point.
You're not going to win the green race. No, exactly. So. And it's a class 5 race. If you flip a Gorilla, you should be able to roll. So that's kind of where I draw the line. I'm like, all right, if they just flip in the flume, they should be able to roll. If you totally like go off Gorilla upside down and backwards, you're probably going to get rescued,
Yeah.
So
I think that's a fair way to do it.
Yeah, that's what we try to do. But people see their friends and like, come on, you got it. But some racers are like, help me. So
yeah. I think at that point, if you're out of breath and tired, I mean, if I was flubbing a few rolls there, I'd be reaching out.
Glad
to have the help.
But. Yeah, no, we never penalize anybody either for like getting helped by safety. You just like roll them up, spin them around, and send them on their way. And
I mean, their time's already be kind of shot anyway.
Exactly. So
it's a matter of seconds out there. Well, I think it's really cool that, I mean, what you all do really helps people to lay it out there and just take the risks that they need to take in order to go fast. And I think it's a great safety net that you all have going there. So.
Yeah, thanks. It's pretty fun. It's definitely it's really fun, and it's definitely taken on a life of its own. It's like it's its own machine, and it's so fun. And I'm like pretty lucky to be a part of it for as long as I have been. Yeah, the safety aspect of it is definitely causes me some anxiety.
Yeah. What do
It's
you,
real,
what do you, what's
you know?
what's your most anxious thing? Like, what do you lose sleep over at night leading up to the race?
I mean, just like, somebody, I would say the pin at go left is like down in the pocket down there. That could be a pretty hard rescue, even if you're, even if everybody's like 100% on it, that is a thing, or like a catastrophic like head injury at Gorilla. Like there's definitely the potential for that. And I think there's a lot of dice rolling that goes on with the green race. So
Yeah.
hopefully people know that it is real and you really should be on your game.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think even with the top notch,
Yeah.
even with the top notch safety thing that you all are doing, racers still have to understand that they are responsible 100% for their safety and need to be able to get down the course, even when they're tired.
Yeah, 100%.
It's hard to wrap your head around how difficult that is until you do it a few times. But,
Yeah.
well, thank you for doing it. One other thing, do you have any thoughts about spectator safety? What's your opinion of what's going on there?
Man, I think the spectating is a pretty loose operation.
Yeah.
And we definitely encourage anybody down there to bring a PFD. If you're getting close to the river, if you want to sit with your feet hanging in, you should definitely bring a PFD down there.
Yeah.
Because it'll save you.
Yeah.
But
people need to wrangle their kids a little better too. Yeah, like I said, I saw
agree
a kid
with
fall
that.
off a rock and hit his head, and it was ugly. But yeah, when I took my kid down, he was wearing a helmet, a PFD for sure.
Yeah, no, helmet's a good idea as well, for sure. And wrist guards, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of fall with outstretched hand occurring out there.
Yeah.
But
that sounds like that's
good.
outside of your all's responsibility, at least. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Unless somebody goes in the river,
Yeah.
which has happened. So it's pretty funny. You said that about the kids because one year when my kids were pretty small, Paulie had him up at go left and Dax fell in. He didn't fall in the rapid, but he fell in like right below. And one of the rescue guys had to grab him and pull him up.
That's pretty funny.
But he had a PFD on.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add that we haven't discussed here? Anything that you feel needs to be said out there to the racers or to spectators? Anybody?
I don't know. Yeah.
Volunteers?
Be careful out there. It's a savage place. Like don't underestimate any of it. Is what I always try to do because people get pretty comfortable out there and we all have a great time, but it's a more fun time if nobody gets seriously injured.
Yeah. Well, that's it for today. Thanks to Tommy Hillicky for coming on here and explaining this whole process. I've got one more green race safety perspective that I wanted to hear. A conversation with Andrew Grizzell, one of the legendary green race safety crew. Check it out soon. And good luck to all the racers heading out to the Lord of the Fork race this week at the Russell Fork. Enjoy it. Thank you for listening to The Safety Break, the Whitewater Rescue Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, hit the subscribe button and click follow on our Facebook page so we know that you're out there. I'm also looking for more stories. If you know of an interesting non-fatal river accident or rescue, send me a few details by email, safetybreak@gmail.com. It doesn't have to be dramatic or life-threatening, just something that we all might be able to learn from. I'll see if we can turn it into an episode. Stay safe out there, and I hope to see you on the river.